What's up, guys? It's DK. Welcome to Thorin's YouTube channel. Why are you even here, though? Didn't you know Ginger Man bad?
FaZe Clan has been a disappointment for literally years now. It's been something like 1.5 years since they cocked Karrigan and took away his in-game leader powers for good. In that time, though, NiKo has still been one of the most godlike players in the world, still been one of the best primary carries in the world, but other players in the team have degraded, other players in the team have fallen off. Even then, it's not like they didn't make any roster moves. They did the enormous signing of Faze-era, former best player in the world. They added young Brocky, who actually has been performing pretty well. In fact, on LAN, he's been really good this year. I'll admit he hasn't played that many LANs. But they've become this blue balls team. They show massive power when it's looking really good and when NiKo's popping off and a couple of people can join him or on certain maps, as you'd expect from the lineup when you look at the names. But they also can completely betray you if you look at the names, collapse entirely, become just NiKo or just Brokey and NiKo, and don't win real tournaments. So fuck off with the whole Blast thing last year where it was the best of one Blast, the Blast Pro Series. Like, we're not talking about it. We're talking about winning real tournaments with best of 3 series, proper brackets, a decent amount of teams there. So this comes to the topic that I often term CS royalty. Now, I've got a video on this concept here. This is where, to summarize briefly, you have these former great players, people whose name value and the memories that you associate with them, unsurprisingly, it can make people overrate them, still think of them that way, or see the name and go, fuck yeah, it's burning on my brain that guy's amazing. They protect these players. They'll argue any different level of oh, it's because of this reason, or maybe he plays bad spots, or on this map, it's unfair, they just leave him out to dry. It's like, well, okay, it shows that. Don't just say it. So there's cognitive dissonance. You get people here. Again, you make a key argument and they'll just jump to something else. Like, oh, but he's better than this guy. It's like, well, what's that got to do with it? So rather than use raw analysis, devoid of emotion, which you'd want the top people in the scene to do, even the top people in the scene, the best analysts, the most knowledgeable people, former pros, current pros, nobody calls these people out. And I'm not saying call them out like, fuck this guy, kick him, like, but just point out he's not performing well. He's not who he used to be. Don't reference FaZe Clans having 5 superstars and stuff like, this is just bullshit. These are nonsense narratives. And crucially, it doesn't help FaZe Clan or Olofmeister to do this, as I'll address later in this video. So I also think it's just unfair. It's intellectually dishonest and it's unfair because there's other CS royalty where when their name wears off enough and people don't remember them, maybe they were a couple of years before Olofmeister, they get super bagged on. Shocks would be a great example, right? Everyone was saying, hey, shit, why is he invite out? Everyone's bagging on him 24/7. You'll find out some things towards the end of this video you might not like. Another thing I've addressed in a video is that when we talk about stats now, stats are not the conclusion or the end of the story ever. I've also, as I say, I've got a whole video on that, but let's summarize that. To me, stats are a signpost. They're pointing somewhere. If you get these particular coordinates and these factors, and it suggests that it's going in this direction. Here's like a rough trend that's going on. So to me, they're the beginning of a journey or the first step on a journey, perhaps. But you have to continue beyond the stats, take them, put them in context, look at them, all the rest of it, if you actually want to have conclusions, if you want to be able to firmly know something. But I will say, we'll circle back to that topic, that stats are not the end of the discussion, but I tell you what, if you believe in stats and you believe that they're a good metric of how good you are in the game, they're pretty damning in the context most people are applying them right now when you look at Olofmeister. Remember, it's not me who bigs up stats all the time. So many people, my boy Lurpis, HLTV staff most notably, and in many cases aggressively towards me, these people believe that stats are an accurate benchmark of the performance of a player. Now, they are of a kind of performance. We'd have to define what performance means there. But only in incredibly simplistic terms, typically, like the kills, the deaths, the overall rating, which they decided how it works. Well, there's a famous thing, it's called like, somewhat like Goddard's Law or something. I'll post in the chat if I'm wrong about that. But basically, the concept is when you define just certain metrics and then people know that those metrics are how you define performance, people will start playing for those metrics instead of the overall game, which the metrics just suggested something about. So if anything, it becomes sort of a rigged game, it becomes a shell game at some point in time. Hence why you get people baiting and not going for kills on the last round of a half when they know they're going to lose and it's the second half anyway. Like, you get stats padding that should never exist in pro play because people have obsessed over certain stats. I mean, I'll give it up. ADR, I think, is generally a pretty good stat. Also, still depends what position you play and how often they come there. But it starts to narrow it and give you a bit more consistency and so be even more suggestive, I'd say. But even so, let's just say this right now. If you believe in stats and that they have this essential truth to them, then this video should shake you to your core if you are one of the people under the illusion. Olofmeister is still a good player, is still a top 10 team player, is still someone who it's perfectly fine for him to be in FaZe Clan. He's not the main reason they're losing. So when we go and we look at the stats of Olof's career, We're going to do it directly on HLTV. I've got all of the pages set up already. So, okay, first of all, let's go here. We look at Olofmeister's page on HLTV.org. At the moment, no filters have been applied. We've got every match he's ever played in CSGO. We've got all time as a result, every different level of opponent, every map. No differentiation between online and offline, because at the moment we're in an online era and his most recent performances have been online, although we'll certainly toggle LAN on and off and examine if there's much of a difference there. One thing I actually like that HLTV added over the last few years is this part here, where you not only see the overall rating, but you get to see if they've been farming noobs. Like, you get to see what they're like versus top 5 opponents, top 10 opponents, top 20 opponents, top 30, top 50, and then just everyone. So when we look at Olofmeister's career overall, look, for his entire career, he has a 1.07 rating. He averages like an alright amount of kills, like for the level he played at most of his career, pretty good. His deaths, again, pretty good actually. This is pretty reasonable. ADR is pretty good. But here's the key thing you should already be thinking about before we dive deeper, is this was a guy who was the best player in the world for like almost a year. This was a guy who is one of the truly great players to ever play this game. This is someone who, he was fantastic, right? He was a truly great player. I mean, one of the greatest players ever. He's a GOAT candidate. He really is. And not just, by the way, for the stats that he had. Yes, he had very good stats at the time, but we're not talking simple or Nico level stats typically. Mainly, it's like he had very good stats, but then when the eye test told you this guy is the best player in the whole world in 2015, because you would watch and think about the Fnatic team. At the time, the greatest team of all time, the time that won 2 majors out of 3 that year, and as I've pointed out in one of my Snipe videos, could have won like 4 majors if shit had gone slightly differently. On this Fnatic team, consider this. This guy himself basically made the CT side of Cash work. That was a map they could be good on, but that was relying on when JDubs was good. When he wasn't, it was all about Olofmeister hard carrying, like that Gfinity final where he just went ham on fucking Virtus Pro. Then you go and you look at the CT sides on Mirage and Inferno, 2 of their best maps ever in that Fnatic team, where him and Crims are the duo on CT side, are just unbeatable. Then let's swap to the T side. On Train and Cobble, he's the main reason those teams were so deadly and could make those maps work. On the T side of Cobble, he would famously push out to that plateau and you had to deal with him. CTs could not get there fast enough. Then on Train, he would push out to what the position called Olof, that left area out of T mid, where you're on the what would it be, the 6 trains. You're just to the left of that, where everyone famously now mollies. Like, that's because he would push out there and again occupy space, and his team could play off that, and the CTs had a hard time responding to it. So let's just consider for a second. I've just accounted for 5 of the maps in the 7 map pool at the time. This guy was a fucking legendary player. He was a truly great player. And you know what? It's not just even that. He's also a cool guy. He's a guy who has experience, who you can see when his aim isn't bad and when his skills aren't degraded like this, he can contribute to the team. He can win clutches. He can use his experience to help you. He would perform under pressure when he used to. But the problem is you only see that in occasional glimpses now. So the point I'm making here is when you're at the level he was for the first couple of years, and especially that 2015 year, obviously he then had the injury in 2016. He was never quite the same player again afterwards and swapped up roles and even teams. The problem is when you've been to that peak and you've had the stats all on your side and you're one of the best players in the world, if the stats are so average to just like mildly above average in certain areas like this, that means the last few years have dragged you down. It's your performance in these last few years that must have been really bad to make it that the eventual averages are this for your entire career. Now let's jump into some of the more specific things. So if we look here, what we want to analyse is how was Olof during his entire time in FaZe? Because obviously when he was in FaZe Clan, he was never the best player. He wasn't the superstar player. They didn't play around him like they did in Fnatic. He wasn't this influential GOAT player when he was in this team. In fact, this is how he was resurrecting his career. He'd kind of gone off the boil when he was in that Fnatic where they remade the one with Dennis, etc. in 2016 and going into 2017. When they remade it in 2017. This is the team where he got back again to a team that had a chance at an era that could do amazing things, that were 1 round away from winning a fucking major. So let's look, was it the case that he was performing at the kind of level he performs at now and in 2020 for his entire time in FaZe? I already know it isn't. I watched the games. I've even kept track of this guy's stats over the years. But let's just go ahead and show you so you can see it with your own eyes and we can explain through it. So if we go here on the FaZe page, Olofmeister joined in 2017. He was acquired on the 20th of August to replace Kiyashima. RIP. So now let's go and let's look at that, okay? So what I've done is I've taken Olofmeister's page and again, it's all matches, but now I've filtered. What I've done is go down to here. I've filtered it from the day he joined FaZe Clan to the day he returned from inactivity, when he just went inactive at that point over the summer of 2018 after they failed to secure their era. So that should be a pretty reasonable time window, right? You can already see on the graph here, spoiler, look, he goes way up. And, you know, this is when FaZe Clan's at their absolute peak. They're just like unbeatable at this point in time. Then he starts to come down. He's still pretty good. This is fine. Look, this is almost the time when the era just fails. And then after that, boom, he's barely playing. Obviously, the occasional times he plays now, it's going downhill. It's not looking good already, right? That's up until the period when he comes back. So you can see over that time period, you know what? If you're someone who's only supposed to be like the 4th or 5th best player on your team, and you're playing like entry roles, supportive roles, these are pretty good stats actually, boys. Like he's got a 1.11 rating. His DPI doesn't die that much actually. That's pretty impressive. Bear in mind sometimes you're entry in. His kills are actually fucking good for a player playing that and playing versus the best teams in the world all the time. Decent ADR, nice impact. Then you go down here. Okay, against top 5 opponents, yeah, this isn't the prime of his career. He's still doing like above average. He's still doing well. And this is a decent sized map, 37 maps. It's the same for top 10 teams. Now, when you get to the lower teams, who they only have the skills, they don't have the experience, they don't have the wealth, they don't perform as well in pressure. Now, actually, he's farming them. He's doing really fucking well. So, the Olofmeister, during basically the period when FaZe Clan was trying to establish that era, he is a good enough player. I'd argue the other way around. If anyone criticised him and said he should be cut, it's like, no, this guy's really good, actually, for what he's doing in the team and how he's reinvented his career. But the problem is this. Let's then go to the next set of analysis lenses we're going to apply. So now what we do is take the moment he came back after his inactivity. See there, we've got it on there, July the 10th. And we're going to take it until now, basically. And we're going to, again, this is all time. This is online, offline. By the way, I'll quickly show you over here. On LAN, it got slightly worse, but not much. In fact, if anything, it's just actually the performances against the worst teams that go much down. So go back at that again. So now let's go to this time period when he's now been playing in FaZe since basically he came back, and it was only a few months later they completely removed Carrigan. It was actually for Epicenter. They removed him, yes, during the playoffs of the major, FaZe Major, but then they actually put him back in for ESL New York where they bombed it. So over that period of time until now, he has a 1.0 rating. That's the minimum that every fan's willing to accept, right? Okay, not the end of the world still, right? Then you go and look at the rest of the stats, right? His deaths are still fine. He's doing a good job in that regard. But his kills, he actually averages less kills, only by 0.01, but he averages less kills than he gets deaths in a game. His ADR's gone way down. He's actually, like, basically, he doesn't come close to killing a person per round in that regard. His impact's way down. His kill assists, etc. is still fine. Then you go down here. So, okay, now he's really bad against the top 5 opponents. Like, in almost 90 maps, a big sample size, he's way below average for what you'd expect at this level, necessarily. Same with top 10 opponents. And it doesn't matter who he's playing. Even when he goes and plays top 50 opponents, I mean, this includes all the others as well, that's not enough to help this guy farm up, even though you're adding over... I mean, you're adding over like 150 more maps into the equation that aren't against top 5 opponents. So we're already seeing this is getting alarming right now, but it gets worse than that. That's over the entire period. I know you had periods where you had a tournament or a major where he came back. You had a couple of tournaments where he'd look decent, or a little spell where he'd get his shit together. So let's go to another filter. Well, and by the way, we'll quickly look at LAN for that. Similar on LAN. In fact, on LAN, he actually frags slightly better than he gets in terms of deaths, so that's okay. Still not that great. Numbers are pretty similar overall in terms of the ratings. Now let's go over to here. This is just this year. This is just 2020. That's all we're looking at in this one. Right, in 2020, for all matches, he's a 0.094 as his rating. That's poor. You can see there, it's just not good. And at the level he's playing at, you've got to be better than that, unless you're doing something insane that doesn't show up on the scoreboard. His actual deaths still remains a player who doesn't die as much. He's obviously a good player in clutches, right? Similar for kill assist, survive or trade, the cast thing. His kills are fucking terrible, by the way. This is really bad. This kind of fragging is like... This is the kind of fragging that normally those IGLs that are really smart IGLs but shit fraggers have. Like, that's the level we're talking about here. ADR is really poor again. It's gotten even worse. Impact, even worse. So again, if you believe in stats, this is really alarming. Then we go down here. Against top 5 opponents, he's played 22 maps. That's quite a lot, actually. And he's got an appalling rating. You go across the board. Even when you let him play top 50 opponents, which adds like 52 more maps, he's still appalling. The rating is really, really bad at this point in time. Okay, is it LAN? Is it online? On LAN, it's marginally better in terms of the rating. He still dies more than he kills, and he's still on a really bad level on that regard. He's still got a good amount of deaths, though, in terms of like how few deaths he's got. Impact's still bad, ADR still terrible. And again, you look down here, it's not like we have a massive jump up overall. So, okay, let's just wait a second. That's already quite worrying, right? But how about this? How about I really burst that little bubble that you have about other players that you might think are shit, that I see fans all the time bag on, say they're garbage, they shouldn't even be able to play at tier 1, like they're washed, like they're just stealing checks. Let's go look at some other players for a second. Now, as I referenced before, my boy Shox, who's a player who actually has returned to top level form way more times than Olofmeister has, and with way more consistency, he's actually had, aside from the fact he didn't win the majors, in terms of individually, I think he's had a better career in CSGO than Olofmeister. You can take that to the fucking bank, as FaZe Clan sadly have to every single month. Now, let's go and look at Shox, okay, in Vitality. Massively criticised. I myself even thought he probably should have been cut from Vitality quite early on this year. I don't think he's played well enough. But let's go and look at him, okay? So in 2020 in all matches, remember this is Olofmeister, 0.99. So Shox has exactly the same rating. Then we go over here, deaths per round. Shox isn't dying that much more. He's dying a bit more, okay? Fragging, Shox is killing more people each round. Shox plays entry on some maps, by the way, like on Inferno when they rush here. ADR, better for Shox than it is for him. Impact, better for Shox than it is for him. The only thing Olofmeister is better at is the cast thing, and that's because Olofmeister does play well around people. He does play off teammates well. Shox has more of an issue with that, even though he can win clutches. So then let's go down to here. Okay, admittedly, Olofmeister... Actually, wait there a second. I should take that off that. It was on the wrong filter there. So Olofmeister has played 22 top 5 opponents. So listen, Shox has played way less. He's only played 10, but his stats are much better. In fact, it's the same across the board. And once you get to here, yeah, Shox has played 20 less maps against top 50 opponents. And he's still better even in that regard. But yes, okay, we'll give him at this point, we'll give Olofmeister a slight break. But up here, it's still not looking that good. And yeah, obviously Shox could perform equally as bad, but that's the point. If you guys bag on Shox, it's kind of fucked that you're not at least analysing between the two of them. Well, how can they have similar stats or Shox be slightly better but Olof be the better player? That would be a great topic for a video, right? I'd love one of the boffins you guys all think understands the game to a deep level to go and analyse that. Because you know what? When fans tell me that, I'd love to just turn the glare back on them and say, let's analyse how you look at the game. Let's look at what you can see. And you'd find that they have massive flaws in their thinking like this. Let's go and look at another player, shall we? How about NBK? Now, NBK doesn't even have the superstar name attached to him anymore because it's been years since he was a star player. People loved to bag on him when he was in Vitality. They thought he should be cut. Then they were bagging on him when he was in OG. He fucking shit, he didn't even do anything. Let's go look at my boy NBK, one of the smartest players to ever play Counter-Strike, by the way. So, okay, NBK in 2020, in all matches, has a 1.0 rating. He's better than all the others in rating, by the way. He dies a lot. True, but you look at how he plays, I think it makes perfect sense. He is a guy massively willing to sacrifice himself, but okay, that's worse than everyone else. His killing is better than Olofmeister, is at the same level as Shox. His ADR is pretty nice. His impact's actually pretty legit. It's over a 1.0, and his cast isn't bad either, right? It's okay. Then we go down here. Okay, he actually performs really well against top 5 opponents in terms of his role and the fact that his team's not supposed to be good. Like, top 5 opponents are way above the level of OG when they started. Then you go top there. Like, his are okay, and he's having somewhere similar, right? And also, he's played similar amount of maps to Shox. Then let's go to LAN a second. Okay, on LAN, it gets a little bit worse. Yeah, some of these stats go a little bit worse overall. Hasn't played any top 5 opponents. Yeah, okay. But if you're going to say NBK is shit, you have to explain to me why Olof's better. And I'll do one more name. This isn't a superstar name, but it's a player who's bagged on a lot, especially when this particular lineup I'm about to talk about wasn't good. And that is going to be Amanek. Now, he's the guy where in the current G2, right, they have fragging IGL Nexa. It does get overrated how much he frags, but obviously he frags out in particular games, and the eye test tells you he's skilled. Then you have Hunter. I mean, one of the best, he's the best rifler in the team, can be a monster, kind of like Nico Light. Then you've got Kenny S, one of the best players in the world, contender for best player in the world, easily a top 5 player in the world this year in all factors. So Amanek, Jax does his role. Jax plays off angles on CT side. He can be a good entry on CT. Amanek's kind of the guy left out, right? He's doing fuck knows what. And as a result, he's not that good a player, right? Most people would say if you're going to cut some of a G2, you'd cut him, right? So then you go look here. In 2020, he has a 1.05 rating. Listen, his team has been doing, admittedly, better overall than OG certainly, and it's debatable but slightly better if you add in the lands, obviously, than FaZe Clan. Then you go look here, his deaths are actually better than Olof's. He's doing way better than him, actually. He's doing a very good job in that sense. His cast is very good. You guys probably don't think of Amanek as this really smart player who's doing things correctly, playing off his teammates well, right? His ADR's better. His impact, admittedly, it's better as well, by a decent margin. Not tons, but a decent margin. And his kills per round is actually even better again. He's got a 0.56 for Olof, and you've got 0.63 for Amanek. Now, if you go down here, he's doing all right. let's have a look what Olof's were. Oh, he's doing much better against all levels of opponent. And even when you go to the top 50, it's not like it averages out at that point in time. So people are going to say that I'm an X shit, right? Then explain to me why Olofmeister isn't. Now, if you're one of those people who thinks, well, Olofmeister is good though, I watch him and, he has flashes and he's still good and, he can still contribute, then here's what you can do. As a fan, or ideally I'd love it if an expert did it, because I'd love it if there was a way you could explain that Olofmeister was still really good. Make the counter case. Make a video showing footage, analyse his positions, his decision making, his raw fragging, his skills, and then explain away these stats or give the context that makes them make sense as to how he could still be good. That he's doing something doesn't show up on the box score. He's playing somehow as a teammate. That's what the cast award, by the way, is supposed to, the rating is supposed to actually show you. So I think it's quite, I'm quite skeptical you'll find anything. So go do it, because here's the thing, okay? It's not that Olofmeister today must be cut immediately. I will say, if you knew what you know now, and I said this years ago, they should have cut him in the last year and a half. Like, that just is obvious from the way the stats have gone and how their performances have been in tournaments. They've been so underwhelming in the big tournaments with the proper formats, even majors. So I would just say this though, it's not like there is no circumstances under which Olofmeister can stay in FaZe. In fact, I've been thinking about this, and this is something I'll try and make a trend when I do this series of CS Royalty, and I take the sacred cows and I gall them for you guys, which is, this is how Olofmeister could stay on FaZe Clan. First of all, it depends what FaZe Clan's plans are for the future. If they're willing to cut someone else in the team, because they desperately need an in-game leader as far as I'm concerned, then if they can figure out someone else to cut that's fair and for the player that they're getting and he can still play a role and that IGL can use him better, there's one angle whereby he can stay. Because at the moment, for me, the raw firepower angle of having Nico as the IGL, it's fool's gold for them, because Nico does it all the time, but then a whole bunch of the others don't. And you can't rely on Brocky and tell him to be a superstar and be at the level of Kenny S. It's just not going to happen realistically and consistently at this point in his career. So some of those other names have to fucking do something, including my boy called Zera at times. So my suggestion is, if I had to pick someone to be cut from this team, I would pick Olofmeister, because the other obvious person is Rain. And I think it's bullshit that during many of those time periods when Olofmeister had already gotten bad and his stats were going down and down and down and down, Rain was the guy for me where, just because his name's not as big, he's the one who gets on the chopping block when he performs badly. He's the one people want cut instead of Olof, so that their beloved Olof doesn't have to get cut, right? It's more of a feel-good story if Olof keeps playing at the top level. I think that's kind of bullshit, personally. I think Rain's contributed much more and played much better over the last year and a half. So my suggestion to Olofmeister, and I have told him as much privately before I put this video out, because I wanted to encourage this guy and give him this last chance in terms of how he could turn his career around, because I think there's one way he can do it, and this is it. Famously, when Fnatic was at their peak, their T-side style was you play off defaults, people do their own genius moves, people have team play between each other because you played together so long and you have the right mix of players, and then Pronax makes a nice mid-round call. Or when it wasn't Pronax, Dennis has to frag out even more and he has to win your pistol round. That's how they win the games, right? So I remember talking to some of those guys in Fnatic, and they weren't studying all the demos of the opponent. They weren't anti-stratting them all. They weren't looking at their own demos and looking for flaws as much. They just played and practiced and trusted that their skills and who they were as a team, or what the game was at the time, was enough. So I've often said the superstar great players of all time in CS are completely missing a trick if they're not device, maybe simple, in that they're not going and breaking down demos of the opponent so they know the tendencies of the guy they're about to attack, and then looking at the heat maps of themselves like Device does, so you can be unpredictable and switch up your game when your individual aim is off, when you're having a bad day where you can't get your head in the match. So what I would say is this: if you're Olofmeister, get in those demos, get in heat maps, and work heavily to scout your opponents and figure out on your own end where you're being most vulnerable and how to switch it up when necessary. Let's use the sports analogy of great players, right? When they're young, in their 20s, they tend to get by on their athleticism. They beat you to a spot. They're faster than you. They're stronger than you. They can jump higher than you. That's how they beat the average player in the league, right? When they're in their prime, famously, that can actually be where their athleticism's gone down a bit, but now their experience, their understanding of the game, all the study they've done, that makes them their peak. That's why they're the prime player. That's why it's usually like 28 to 33, let's say, for their prime, and that's when they should win their championships ideally. Then you come to their latter years where the athleticism's gone down, 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 but now they've only studied more, they know more about the game, they have more experience, so now they get by on preparation, execution of what they learn in that preparation, technique, doing things the most efficient way overall. There's a great video, I'll maybe link it here, where Ray Lewis, when, I think it was in 2018, when the Patriots were going to play the Jaguars, and one of the defensive players for the Jaguars kind of talked shit on Tom Brady, the quarterback of the Patriots. And at the time, most people had the Jaguars beating the Patriots, actually. Ray Lewis, legendary middle linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best defensive players of all time, and a guy who was amazing at doing the chess match of the game. He basically comes on and, using Tom Brady, gives like a nice little rant, a speech about how defense is played. And he talks about, if you're that young player, but you're just getting by on athleticism and how good you are now, and, you know, you're going to be partying and you're just getting ready and you want to feel loose from that. No, you're going to lose to Tom Brady, because he ain't doing that. He's sat on his couch clicking. He's watching film. He's watching this film. He's watching that film. He's watching this play. He's watching that snap. He's watching analysis of how you played, maybe even fucking college. He's watching analysis of how similar defenses defended against him and similar players to you. He's preparing so much that in the game, it ain't about just the raw athleticism of American football. It's about a chess match that he already won before you even played it, because he even knows what you want to do and how to potentially neutralize or how to counter that. So study like that can offset poor fragging. It can make you die even less. He's doing a pretty good job with that. It can extend your career. It can unlock or activate that experience and the composure you have shown in your career, but your raw skills don't let you have now if you just take an aim duel and try to win it overall. So I actually think if Olofmeister really takes that to heart and he wants to play more years at the top level and in a team like FaZe Clan, it's not impossible. This guy is a smart guy that he could turn his career around. Now, there will be more to come on this series, where I'll pick out some more of the darlings of the CS scene, some of the greats of history, and we'll look at whether or not they're actually good now, and we'll put the challenge to the people who think they are. Show us how these stats can be explained away or have key context that we're missing. This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Dean Tanglis, Emanuel Särnbratt, JDubs, NateDOhDoubleG, the Puyallup Tribe, Tobias Bernasconi, Xinged, and a special thanks always goes out to Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my shows? Maybe ask a question in my monthly video AMA? Do you want teasers? Who are the guests on my next content? Maybe you want to take part in one of those donated discussions with me where we go really deep into the weeds. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today in the description box link below.